it was pretty hard, and it was constant. They worked from first light to last light. When the men were around, they were just left to get on with it. But when they weren't there, the women were really in charge and running things.
Running the things that are actually important.
Yeah.
You know.
They'll all say, "Oh, Granny, how did you know that? How do you know that?" And they'll say, "If there's ever an apocalypse, you'll survive."
Hi folks, Tom from Dozy. Thanks for tuning in. So I like to make videos about a bunch of different topics, but I'm primarily interested in my passion for wilderness living skills. And when I started this series on 17th century Highlanders, I was primarily interested in the skills, knowledge and equipment the average Highlander would have used in order to survive in the wild away from main settlements. However, of course, to understand how people lived away from main settlements, you have to understand what life was like normally on the day-to-day. And as the series has increased in popularity, I've explored the greater context of this culture, from Celtic mythology to weapons and martial arts to everyday traditional living skills. Now, the historical characters I've been learning through are people like the Highland cattle drovers and famous stories about Highland warriors. And it's from these written accounts where I've learned things about what sort of clothing and equipment the people were carrying. However, the vast majority of these characters were men. Therefore, in this video, I want to learn about what life was like for the average woman during the 17th and 18th century here in the Highlands. So in order to learn about this, I went to visit the Highland Folk Museum in Newton Moor, where they have a whole township based on what life was like in the 1730s. There I got to sit down and interview one of their staff, Marion, who was an expert in traditional living skills. There I got to pick her brains on what life was like for the average woman in the Highlands during this time period. So sit back and relax and enjoy. Okay, so I'm here at the Highland Folk Museum in Newton Moor and I'm joined by Marion. Thanks so much for agreeing to talk with me.
That's okay.
So tell me, Marion, what was life like for the typical woman during the 17th and 18th century here in the Highlands?
Well, it was pretty hard, and it was constant. They worked from first light to last light. So they're up in the morning and they're getting the breakfast put out, and then they start mucking out. That was the women's work. Okay.
Mucking out where the cattle were?
Yes, yeah. And then they had to go and forage for the new veg and that for the day in the summertime. And at the same time, they would collect extras. They would pickle it, bottle it, dry it. I mean naggins and naggins. And bury it in the peat bogs to keep it good. Then they had their oats, and that was women's work. And back then the querns were bigger, so it was two women pushing and pulling, you know. And that could be for the younger generation as well. And the finer the grain, the better the flour. But it's just really cracking the husks. You know, for the porridge, which they ate everything of. You know, and you added silverweed was a great base for lots of things. Docking roots, docking leaves, dandelions, sorrel, all kinds of nettles. You know, you could add anything to the pot to bulk it up.
Okay, interesting.
And there was also the wilder things like hares, grouse, pigeons, fish, ducks, geese, you know. They did keep hens as well, but the eggs were kept for trade. The wild birds' eggs.
Okay. So you'd say, so what sort of the daily tasks women were doing? So like a lot of the time, it seems to be the women are doing most of the work.
Yes.
Especially the just for the daily living. So it's. I
mean, the township was split up. Now at the lifting time, they're starting to plough and turn the fields, and women and men did that. Okay. They're off up to the peat bogs to dig the peat and dry it. Women helped there because they built it into riddles to dry it. Some are out now hunting for new materials to repatch and thatch the holes while it's fresh in their head where they are. And then the other lot are starting to head to the sheilings and start to hunt and gather and get the cattle and the other animals strong again so they'll milk. You know, it was split up. So you had different days for different tasks. And a lot of these things were sent back from the sheilings.
Okay. So you mentioned that you were talking about the foraging of the vegetables. So did people have little house gardens where they were growing other vegetables, or was it mainly foraged from the wild?
No, they actually had very large kale yards, and we have one here.
Kale.
And they're not rabbits back then, so there was no fear of them being eaten up. So the kale was for actually helping to feed the animals as well as themselves. And then you go out looking for the pig nuts or the earth nuts, and you look. At this time of year, the briar shoots are starting to come up, so you can strip them and soak them.
Fantastic. So, would you say that if in the township during this time period, were the labours very divided between men and women? Did men have tasks that was like very much a man's job, and were women doing tasks that were very much a woman's
the
job?
men they did do a lot of the ploughing. And they did do the thatching. And they were very good craftsmen and blacksmiths. You know, and there were some tanners and cobblers around. But that was the task of the women to collect all the urine, of course. But urine was very, very precious back then because it was used for everything. It was used for dyeing. It was used for shrinking the cloth. It was used for cleaning it. The wool before it goes for dyeing, it was cleaned with the urine as well. The urine set the dye. And they never washed out, you know, you wore it like that, you smelled like that all the time. And it was used for tanning, it was used for bleaching your linen, you know, it was washed in it, and then it was laid out in the field so it could bleach it. And the grass, the damper off the grass, that helped to bleach it from underneath as well.
So do you think, are we wasting our urine by flushing it away?
You would never waste it.
But then I suppose you would have also smelt like peat smoke and everything else.
Especially after you're in there for your hibernation.
I must have been in there all winter.
This is when you'll have your first wash.
The spring cleaning.
That'll be it, And of course when the women did the washing, they did it in streams and they beat it with their feet, or they beat it with a stick, or they slapped it, you know.
So the washing, would that been the women's job as well? And it would have been, do you think people really washed during winter, or was it just too much effort?
No, there's no water. They would have to melt the snow every time they needed it, so I don't see that myself. And when they're mucking out the byres as well over the winter, they usually shovel up against the door to keep the drafts out, you know.
Wow.
There's many ways that they just didn't think about it, you know.
Okay, so one of my main interests is wilderness living skills, wilderness survival skills, and a big part of my Highlander series is looking at the skills people would have used while they're travelling in the wild. Do you think women would have made many journeys? I
think some of them did. You know, some of them went with the drovers if they went on foot. It was be bare feet. And then, yes, they would forage as they went along, and they would add it to their meal. You know, and they were quite good on herbs, which could be added to things. And catching their hares or their grouse, you know, and giving a wee roast in the pot. But mostly they were just taking care of the men, really.
So would have women accompanied the drovers sometimes? Sometimes
they did, Or some of them would just drove their own cattle, you know. So they would be taking care of themselves. The drovers, when they come past here, they could have like 10 mile of cattle behind them. You know, and they could just be arriving at Dalwhinnie and they're still leaving here. Because over in Kingusie, Glenfesh area, it was a big holding area for cattle, for the drovers.
And the women were primarily part of that shieling culture, right?
Yeah, that was important.
So that travelling, you said earlier that sometimes the travelling to the shieling was, sometimes a few miles, but you were saying sometimes it can be quite a
halfway
quite
up
a big
the
journey,
mountain.
halfway up the mountain.
Yeah.
And they would have had to carry all the things that we would need to live during the summer.
Yeah, but then they had the teenagers with them, the younger ones, who would do the carrying probably. The women would take things up in their creel baskets and that, you know. But they did. They made their butter and their cheese up there in the forage for the eggs, which they could send back with some of the older children, you know. Anything they found, the roots and shoots. You could eat some mosses as well, you know, and stuff like that.
So it is.
Yeah, you know, even heather blossoms and things. You could make wines from them and
beer,
syrups from the birch. You know, they could add them, and they kept bees as well. They had bees, yes.
Oh, right, okay. Up in the shieling.
Well, they would have them round about here, yeah.
So we've talked a bit about the differences in some of the daily tasks between men and women. What was the differences in rights between men and women this time period? And do you think that maybe women in the Highlands had more or less rights compared to other parts of the UK?
I really don't know. I can only just say what I think, and I would believe that the men did have the hold, but the women ran things and took care of a lot of what went on in the areas. And working here, you could see that the women were running everything and doing, because they're doing all the daily work, you know. And well, the men did have a say in it. Normally, you know, if there was a group, it would be the men that would be talking and the women would be busy with their hands and things like that. Okay. You know, but and they did have a say behind the scenes.
Aye, behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But not quite written in the history books.
I think when the men were around, they were just left to get on with it. But when they weren't there, the women were really in charge and running things.
Running the things that are actually important, you know, food and fuel and all those things.
It's hard to say because there's no real records of things like that. You know, and there has been a few young girls in who are researching it, and they were saying, no, the women certainly ran the estates and things like that. You know, but I think it was harder if a woman lost her husband. It was going to be harder for her to negotiate with men. So it might be the idea that she got another man, and you know, and he could do the negotiating. Okay. But she might keep a hold of the money.
What I'm interested in is really looking at what we can take from history to the present day. So with this in mind, is there anything that you learned, you know, while you're working here or through your exploration of history that you bring back to your everyday life?
Well, yeah, it's how to use the fresh food much more than the tin food or processed food. Okay. You know, and I have family come from America at times to visit us, and they all say, "Oh, Granny, how did you know that? How do you know that?" And they'll say, "If there's ever an apocalypse, you'll survive." You know, because we do go out and hunt for things and eat them. Bring them back.
So you believe that's some really important skills that we need to keep alive.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Marion.
You're welcome.
Thank you for sharing all your knowledge. Is there anything? Have you got a message to folks out there watching YouTube?
Yeah, put it down.
Put it down.
Go out and start foraging and have a look at the countryside and smell it. It'll open your eyes.
Good. Go out and forage.
And come and visit us as well.
Come visit.
Yeah. We'll be here. for hundreds of years to come.
Thank you so much.
You're
Marion.
welcome,
Thank you,
Tom.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
So I hope you enjoyed that, folks. I certainly learned loads. Highly recommend that you go visit the Highland Folk Museum. Not only do they have that township in the 1730s, but they've got other townships and other building examples looking at other time periods in Highland history. So highly recommended. Thank you so much to Marion for sharing her knowledge and her time. And thanks for watching, folks. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you want to learn more about my work, go check out my website, tomlanghorn.com. And I will see you in the next video. Cheers.